For 30 years, Johnny Carson reigned as the undisputed king of late-night television. With that charming smile and easy Midwestern manner, he seemed like the friend America invited into their living rooms every night. To millions, he was the kind, funny host who could put anyone at ease. But behind the desk sat another Johnny entirely. Off camera, he was fiercely private, deeply insecure, and above all, unforgiving. Once you crossed Johnny Carson, you weren't simply taken off the guest list for a week. You were erased permanently. Johnny never forgot and never forgave. Recalled one Tonight Show producer who worked with him for more than 15 years. He didn't yell, he didn't make scenes. He just made sure you disappeared. Some bands came from explosive confrontations. Others were sparked by moments so subtle that guests never even realized what they'd done until the invitation stopped coming. Tonight, we're diving into the 8 guests who managed to get themselves permanently blacklisted by the most powerful man in television. My next guest, you all know Joan Rivers. She's appearing at the Plaza for here in Century City. She'll be there for the rest of the week. Joan Rivers wasn't just another comedian on Carson's couch. She was his chosen heir, the woman he personally promoted to permanent guest host. A groundbreaking move that made her one of the most powerful women in comedy. Carson mentored her, guided her material, invited her into his personal circle. For Joan, Johnny was more than a boss. He was a father figure. But in 1986, Fox Television came knocking with an offer too good to refuse. Her own late-night show, directly competing with Carson, paying a staggering $10 million a year. Joan, worried about her future at NBC, where she'd been told she wouldn't inherit The Tonight Show when Johnny retired. At nearly 50, she saw the Fox deal as a security. She accepted, but dreaded telling Carson. Before she could, the news leaked to Variety. Johnny found out from the press. He turned white, remembered a staffer. He just said, "She didn't even call me," and walked into his office. That was it. Rivers' name was never spoken on The Tonight Show again. Clips of her were erased from reruns. She was dead to him. Joan tried desperately to apologize. Letters, phone calls, even gifts, but Carson refused them all. Her career went into a tailspin, and even years later, she admitted losing Johnny's friendship hurt more than losing the job itself. Rivers wasn't welcomed back onto The Tonight Show until 2014, long after Carson had died. By then, she had rebuilt her career, but the wound never truly healed. Carson often poked fun at Wayne Newton's polished Las Vegas persona. For years, the crooner took it in stride until 1980, when Johnny cracked jokes implying Newton's sexuality. In that era, such rumors could ruin a performer. Newton didn't send a letter or call a manager. He stormed into Carson's office, unannounced, and confronted him face to face. "You can joke about my hair. You can joke about my singing," Newton said. "But if you ever make another crack about my sexuality, I'll kick your ass." Carson, taller and imposing, simply stood and replied, "Get out before I have you thrown out." That was the end. Newton was banned for life. Without The Tonight Show, his national exposure plummeted. Decades later, Newton admitted he'd do it all again. Some insults, he said, weren't worth swallowing. Charles Grodin's deadpan humor seemed perfect for Carson's stage. At first, his act, pretending to be hostile, questioning Johnny's questions, delighted audiences. Carson, ever the improv master, played along. But as the years went on, Grodin's confrontations got sharper. He mocked Johnny's interviewing skills, accused him of not caring about guests, and even poked at Carson's biggest insecurity, his emotional distance. Johnny smiled through it on camera, but behind the scenes, his patience snapped. "We're done with that," he told his producer. Grodin was never invited back. Later, Grodin admitted he might have taken the bit too far. "I thought I was doing Andy Kaufman," he said, but Johnny didn't think it was funny. Shelley Winters was Hollywood royalty, a 2-time Oscar winner, and always an unpredictable guest. But in 1975, she crossed a line. That night, Shelley showed up clearly drunk, slurring, rambling, interrupting. Carson tried to hold the interview together. Then he cracked a mild joke about her weight, something she'd laughed at before. This time, she exploded, hurling her entire glass of whiskey in Johnny's face. The cameras cut to commercial. Carson, drenched and furious, walked off set. Shelley was escorted out, never to return. For her, losing The Tonight Show meant losing her last major publicity platform. She later admitted, "Johnny had every right never to see me again." For years, Impressionist Rich Little was a Tonight Show staple, appearing more than 30 times. Then, suddenly, he was gone. No explanation, no drama, just vanished from Carson's lineup. The truth, Johnny had grown tired of him. Offstage, Little dropped his impressions, wearing thin on Carson, who craved authenticity. Worse, Johnny noticed Rich was recycling material, something Carson despised. Rather than confront him, Carson quietly stopped booking him. Little later said he wished someone had told him the reason. "I could have created all new impressions. But in this business, doors don't close with explanations, they just close." By the mid-1970s, legendary writer Truman Capote was battling addiction. In 1975, he appeared on The Tonight Show so drunk and high that he could barely walk. His speech slurred, his stories wandered into inappropriate territory. Carson tried every trick to save the segment, but finally cut it short after just 4 minutes. One of the shortest interviews in Tonight Show history. Backstage, Johnny told him bluntly, "You're not well tonight." Then he banned him permanently without Carson's couch. Capote lost the most important platform for promoting books. His career never fully recovered. Tom and Dick's mothers were counterculture heroes, famous for their political comedy. But Carson wanted The Tonight Show to be an escape, not a soapbox. In 1970, Tom Smothers used his segment to launch into an anti-war speech. Carson smiled politely, but was furious backstage. The brothers weren't banned outright, but they stopped getting invites. When they did appear, they were warned. Stick to music and light comedy, or don't come back. The message was clear. Politics had no place on Carson's stage. In the late 1980s, Morton Downey Jr. became infamous for his combative talk show, yelling at guests, blowing smoke in their faces, creating pure chaos. Against his better judgment, Carson booked him once. It was a disaster. Downey played to the audience, interrupted Johnny, and mocked other hosts, implicitly insulting Carson himself. Johnny ended the segment early. Backstage, he snapped, "That's not television. That's a circus act, and this isn't the big top." Downey never returned. Johnny Carson wasn't loud in his anger. He didn't make public scenes. But when you crossed him, whether by betrayal, threats, drunken chaos, or even lazy material, you were gone. And because of his power, that ban often stretched far beyond one show. To be invited onto Carson's couch was a career-defining moment. To be banished from it could be career-ending. In the end, these 8 stories reveal the man behind the curtain. Charming, yes, but also ruthless. Johnny Carson ruled late-night television for 30 years. Not just with jokes and charm, but with absolute control.